Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Yuat. It's Monday, June 26th. This is Africa 54. Vote counting is underway in Sierra Leone in a tense presidential election as international observers voice concern about lack of transparency in the tallying of ballots. South Africans are calling for effective policing as they decry the high number of homicides. And the United States focuses on supporting Ukraine as analysts weigh in on what could be the fallout from the Wagner group's short-lived rebellion. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin in West Africa, where provisional results from Sierra Leone's presidential elections showed that incumbent President Julius Maada Bio was leading with 60% of votes counted, according to the country's electoral commission. A provisional result sheet showed Bio had received over 1 million votes so far, compared with just under 800,000 for Bio's biggest rival, Samura Kamara of People's Congress APC party. The electoral commission said final verified results will be announced within the next 48 hours. Hondiho has more.
More than 3.3 million registered voters cast their ballots on Saturday in over 11,000 polling stations nationwide. President Julius Maada Bio is seeking a second and final term and is contesting against the leading opposition presidential candidate Samura Kamara, who he defeated in 2018 elections.
Well, as a Sierra Leonean, it's important because the country is actually telling us that our opinion matters, which is important to the kids coming up as well, that you also have a say in what's happening in your country.
Over a dozen candidates were hoping to unseat Bio, though experts predict his main competition likely would be Kamara, the head of the All People's Congress Party.
The process was clean. If I voted for somebody and you don't win, I believe it's a free and fair election. It's genuine.
The elections took place as Sierra Leone deals with economic challenges. Nearly 60% of the population of more than 7 million are facing poverty, with youth unemployment being one of the highest in West Africa. Deadly anti-government protests have rocketed the country during Bio's presidency. The most recent one, fueled by high cost of living, left dozens dead in August 2022, including members of the security forces. To be declared the winner of the presidential race, the leading presidential candidate must secure 55% of the votes to avoid a runoff. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
For more on Sierra Leone elections, I'm joined live via Skype from Freetown, Sierra Leone by Isata Mahoy, National Network Coordinator, West African Network for Peace Building, Sierra Leone. Isata, welcome to Africa 54. The last time we checked, Isata, Maada Bio had 60% lead. Who is leading and by what margin?
Greetings, viewers, and it's a privilege to be with you today. According to the results that has been read so far by the Electoral Commissioner, they have read up to 60% of votes casted. And according to that, the incumbent president, Julius Maada Bio, has scored a total of up to 1,067,660, which according to calculations, he has already scored 55.8%.
And what is expected? What is the margin that will allow him or the other candidate to become the next president of Sierra Leone?
Of course, it is 55% according to law.
So what has the political atmosphere been like leading to this election?
Okay. Of course, we have had about 4 multi-party democracy elections, and this is the 5th one, we have seen transitions wherein we have got peaceful transitions. And with that as well, there are also some issues in the last government when they were transitioning power. What happened was, first and foremost, about 9 members of the main opposition political party were sent out of parliament as a result of some petition that they were petitioned. And the manner in which those petitions were done led to the aggrievement of the main opposition party. So this is an undertone for all the issues we are experiencing today in Sierra Leone. So the opposition was not very much happy about that. And also looking at the legal framework. Quite recently, around 2022, the president, through the ECSL, announced that we are going for a PR system, which the opposition said they were not fully consulted and cannot agree. And the other problem also that emanated from or between the All People's Congress and the Sierra Leone People's Party is that they allege that the way and manner in which the now electoral commissioner was appointed is not legal. So this is a matter that is already in court and they are investigating. So these are some of the undertones for the outcome of what we're receiving in the past few days after elections, while the APC is contesting the elections that have been read so far.
Isata, very quickly, are there concerns of more violence? We saw violence this past weekend, including someone who was killed. What do you expect once the results are announced?
Okay, my organization is an early warning and early response mechanism, and we are also into conflict prevention. So in the run-up to elections, we have been monitoring the event, and we have seen places where there have been tensions, especially when the campaigns were announced. We have seen that in the southeast part of the country, we have seen some resistance by some supporters of the political, the present Sierra Leone People's Party. This is their stronghold. We have seen some resistance where there is an alleged information that they are resisting the opposition from campaigning those ends. And we have not seen that much of that in the northern province. So these are some of the issues that emanated.
We're going to have to leave it there for today. Isata, thank you very much for your insight. Isata Mahoy is National Network Coordinator, West Africa Network for Peace Building, Sierra Leone. Now, as heavy clashes besiege Sudan's capital, Khartoum, Sudanese pilgrims in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, there for the Hajj, an annual ritual. They say they are focusing their prayers on peace in the country. On Sunday, clashes, artillery fire and airstrikes surged once again as war between rival military factions that has displaced 2.5 million people caused a humanitarian crisis and entered its 11th week. The fighting between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces in Sudan has also killed at least 1,000 people, according to medics. Sudanese pilgrims attending the annual pilgrimage in Jeddah are praying for peace in their country.
As a Sudanese, I pray that God will bring safety, peace, and stability for my beloved country, Sudan. May God put out the fire of war and that Sudan returns to the way it was, and even better.
Here we are praying, and we ask all Muslims to take this opportunity to pray for stability and safety in the Muslim world and to pray for their brothers in Sudan, that the country stabilizes and the people live in safety and security.
Hajj is a once-in-a-lifetime duty for every able-bodied Muslim who can afford it. Kenyan President William Ruto on Monday signed into law a bill that raises taxes on a wide range of items, defying criticism that it will pile more economic hardship on citizens. The new tax hike was approved by Parliament last week and will double tax on fuel to 16% and introduce a new housing levy, a move expected to have a ripple effect in the East African country already strained by high inflation. Ruto, who took office in September after a bitterly fought election, is seeking to fill the government's depleted coffers and repair a heavily indebted economy inherited from his predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta, who splurged on major infrastructure projects. Kenya is now sitting on a $70 billion public debt, and repayment costs have jumped as the shilling sinks to record lows of around 140 to the dollar. More than 500,000 refugees in Kenya will not receive assistance from the UN Refugee Agency due to a lack of funding. Amid the tough conditions, a refugee-led organization in Nairobi, Youth Voices Community, is helping thousands of refugees through education in business and learning new skills to earn a living. Mohammed Yusuf reports.
Funding shortages have caused UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, to reduce the assistance it offers to more than 570,000 refugees living in Kenyan camps and urban areas in recent years. The agency says as of June 15th, it has received only 31% of the $153 million required funding to adequately meet the needs of these refugees. In response, urban refugees in Nairobi are learning new skills to survive and start their own businesses. They receive training in online product selling at the Youth Voices Community Center, a refugee-founded and led organization that empowers urban refugees. Founded in 2016 and in collaboration with other independent groups, at least 120 refugees have benefited from the business training in the past 12 months. Mirani Mamisa, a Congolese refugee, is a new member of this class.
As a refugee, my life can change anytime. If I start my business, it can change my life. I can't continue to live like this.
With the authorization of the Kenyan government, at least 91,000 refugees have found shelter in urban areas where economic opportunities are scarce, even for the local population.
We want them to become self-reliant. And being self-reliant means that they either take up job opportunities or they either start up their businesses. And because of maybe the limitations that comes with maybe finding jobs in Kenya, so we are shaping them to begin to start their own businesses, because that way it is actually easier for them to be able to be self-reliant.
Nyaruhimbi Janine is a refugee sharing this shop with a Kenyan. She says the training has helped her to improve her business skills.
Mimi naenda tu kwa duka au kwa soko hata Kikomba nikiona ka blouse kamzuri nanunua tu nasema.
When I go to the market, if I see a nice blouse, I buy it thinking my customers will like it. But what I've learned is that talking to my customers and understanding their preferences, as well as not giving credit, I stopped giving credit. And most importantly, I learned how to save my money.
The theme for this year's World Refugee Day is Hope Away from Home, and this hope is being encouraged here in Kenya. Mohammed Yusuf for VA News, Nairobi.
South Africa's persistently high number of homicides has come under the spotlight. In the first 3 months of this year, more than 6,000 people were slain in the country, according to official statistics. And fed-up citizens are calling for effective policing. Vicky Stark reports from Cape Town, South Africa.
In the Tafelzug neighborhood in Cape Town's Mitchell's Plain urban area, Feroz Kelly is fighting to protect her grandchildren from warring gangsters. She's already lost one. In 2019, 10-year-old Aisha Kelly was killed by a stray bullet during a gunfight between alleged gangsters. Feroz Kelly explains that Aisha was walking to a nearby shop with her mom.
Aisha went around the corner and we heard the shot just go bah. And then It's like, yo, what happened now? And somebody came around the corner, jumping so high from the ground to call, Aisha's laying here, Aisha.
Kelly says a few days after her granddaughter was buried, South African Minister of Police Bheki Cele visited and they discussed the 3 suspects who'd been apprehended. But she says she's still waiting for justice.
He made a lot of promises to me and my daughter. He said the case is going to be finished in less than a year, and it's almost 3 years down the drain.
Member of Parliament Oka Terblanche serves on the Portfolio Committee on Police. Terblanche compared South Africa's homicide figure to the number of civilians killed in Ukraine, which the UN estimates to be about 9,000 since Russia invaded in February 2022. Terblanche says the latest homicide statistics compiled by the police show 6,000 people were slain in the first 3 months of this year. And he says in the 12 months from April 2021 to March 2022, the number of homicides in South Africa was roughly 25,000.
Only 14% of all murders that got reported to the police. You know, the police succeed to investigate properly. The detective rate is only 14%.
Only 14% of reported murders were solved by police last year. In reply to questions from VOA, Police Ministry spokesperson Lorenzo Temba wrote that the ministry is spearheading a detective academy to bolster investigation capabilities, and it's also looking beyond South Africa's shores for assistance in this matter. When announcing the latest crime statistics in May, Cele said that police visibility would improve and more technology would be employed.
The SAPS is also purchasing unmanned aerial vehicles or so-called drones to better police from the sky. More drone pilots are also being licensed, and drone pilots interns are being recruited. Body-worn cameras as well as shot spotters in high-density crimes areas are being prioritized.
Meanwhile, at the University of Cape Town, third-year social work student Zukile Ntentema is setting up a youth violence prevention center. He aims to provide data analysis to help anti-crime organizations measure success.
Of course, we want to help some of these grassroots organizations with proposal writing and other aspect of academic aspect, but most importantly, we will also be boots on the ground.
There is a shortage of social workers in South Africa, home to over 60 million people, and many of its social ills are rooted in poverty. Ntentema says everyone must work together to combat the high homicide statistics so that the country's future generations not only survive, but also prosper. Vicky Stark for VOA News, Cape Town, South Africa.
Still to come, the U.S. focuses on supporting Ukraine after the Wagner mercenary group challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Leone in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In other news, several billions of dollars left in a scheme to deliver COVID-19 vaccines to the world's poorest could be diverted to prepare for other pandemics or to support vaccine manufacturing in Africa, according to the scheme's partners. And things turned topsy-turvy lately on the roadsides of West African nations where cheap contraband petrol from Nigeria has abruptly doubled in price, upending an informal sector that is central to the region's economic activity. The United States is focusing on supporting Ukraine after the Wagner mercenary group openly challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin. Veronica Balderas-Iglesias reports on what some analysts say could be the result of Wagner's short-lived rebellion.
A quiet Sunday in Russia's capital after Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner mercenary group, and his troops ended a rebellion that had them moving toward Moscow. It's unclear what impact, if any, the armed challenge that ended with a deal reportedly mediated by Belarus will have on Russian President Vladimir Putin's rule. Prigozhin had become increasingly critical of Russian military leaders' handling of the war in Ukraine. Washington is watching closely, said Secretary of State Antony Blinken on ABC.
The notion that this war, this aggression by Russia, was being pursued under false pretenses. The notion that Ukraine or NATO somehow presented a threat to Russia that it had to deal with militarily. That's now much more out in the open than it's been. What that leads to, again, we just don't know at this point.
Supporting the Ukrainian forces will remain the focus of the United States, Blinken added.
To the extent that the Russians are distracted and divided, it may make their prosecution of the aggression against Ukraine more difficult. On the other hand, of course, when you have instability of any kind in a major country like Russia, a major power, that is cause for concern.
After agreeing to not prosecute the Wagner rebels, Putin might have been able to limit the damage to his own reputation, says defense studies expert Maureen Moran.
It didn't come to big bloodshed, so Putin knew exactly which buttons to push, and he managed to sort the situation behind the scenes.
If, as part of the deal, the Wagner chief is indeed in Belarus now, he could still play a role in the war against Ukraine. Retired General Richard Dannett, former chief of the General Staff of the British Armed Forces, told Sky News.
If he has gone to Belarus and has kept an effective fighting force around him, then he presents a threat again to the Ukrainian flank closest to Kyiv.
In that context, Dannett advises the Ukrainian forces to remain vigilant. Veronica Balderas-Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
Introduced in Nigeria by the U.S. Peace Corps in the 1960s, baseball is slowly becoming a sport of note thanks to the efforts of a few dedicated lovers of the game. Timothy Obiezu reports from Ekiti State.
A weekly baseball and softball training for school kids is underway in Ekiti State in southwest Nigeria. Baseball coach Oluwafemi Aino started the training camp in 2014 with only 5 baseballs, 2 softballs and a bat. Now, his team, Ekiti Little League Baseball and Softball, has drawn participants from 6 schools in the state, and Aino says there's not enough playing fields.
Baseball is not known anyway. We know, the way it was known in the US and other parts of the world, but because of the passion I have for the game, I don't have any option than to just push it. And the major setback of the game is gear and equipment.
In 2002, Aino quit football to join the first baseball training in Ekiti State. And despite many challenges over the years, he says his passion for the game has only grown. In January of this year, he attended Wendell State Umpire School in the United States as part of his quest to bring baseball back to Nigeria.
One thing that struck my mind then was they said Little League Baseball is the largest youth organization that have youth participants all over the world. And I tried to Google it, and I knew it was true. And that one really ignites my passion and my, energy to just venture fully into the game.
Nigeria fielded baseball teams in the 1999 and 2003 All-Africa Games, winning silver medals in both competitions. In April, Nigeria hosted West Africa's first Little League baseball tournament, which it won. Kunle Adeyemi, the general manager of Ekiti State Sports Council, says such competitions, along with help from local politicians, could usher in new opportunities for baseball in Nigeria.
I can assure you that this new governor, Abayomi Oyebanji, will do everything possible to make sure that all these kids don't fall off. He will make sure that they get to the peak of their career in baseball and softball.
Youngsters like Philip Fagbero say they have big dreams.
In the nearest future, I see myself to excel with my teammates, every one of us, to go higher, in the USA, everywhere around the world. Emmanuel
Olayinka says all they need is an opportunity.
If we should be given a chance, which I believe it will be possible, we like to go out as a team to play outside the country. I think that is a great chance. We are hoping for that.
But first, they'll be working hard to win local sponsors and make the game more popular at home. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
We'll see you right back tomorrow.
This is a sovereign decision for Tunisia. It's not a decision for us or anyone else to make. But it's clear that Tunisia needs additional assistance if it is going to avoid falling off the proverbial economic cliff. But something more comprehensive that, in our judgment, the IMF can best provide would be important to actually helping Tunisia get on a sustainable and positive path. Fundamentally, the government in Tunisia has to make decisions about how it wants to proceed, and we would hope that there's a practical way forward that we can find with, as necessary, appropriate flexibility. We want to see Tunisia succeed, and we want to find ways to provide the support necessary for its success.